Good morning and welcome to another episode of the AV Experience, the solo experience. I'm your host, Ryan, and we get on here a couple times a week to talk about AV and what's going on, what's happening with both myself and all of your guys' AV journeys. It's been, when did we do this last? We did this on not Thursday. Well, I can't even talk this morning. We did this on Monday, and today is the next day. So I have been quite busy, not on my AV journey, but we got our garage painted. You never realize how much stuff you have until you have to move all of it. And I had to move all of it out of the garage and into the shop I have for the AV experience that I use mainly for storage. But it was a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. The shop is not big. I mean, it's 48 feet by 20 feet and it's full of just stuff from my garage. That's insane. I had way more stuff. I was way better at pack ratting this stuff than I thought I really was because I had a lot. So now it's time to purge. What am I keeping at the shop? What am I not? What is coming back? There's not a whole lot here right now. I felt like there still was a whole lot here because it took up a lot of room in the garage or in the driveway while they were painting. Got a new toolbox, got some cabinets that go up against the wall. So that's been my project for the past couple days. And that was a lot. That was a lot of lifting. I'm still not done. I got to put lighting up, got to do all of that. So that's been my project. I hope this is working. It is working. Because last time I got on here, you guys couldn't hear me, but that is working. Haven't watched any movies. Haven't even had time to make it down to the theater. So that's been lacking. Lack of a better expression. Haha. That was terrible. It's funny when you say the same thing, like that was lacking, lack of a better expression, and you say the same words just in different contexts because you're not creative and can't think of different things to say. But it is what it is. I've had a lot of people reach out and talk to me about the LS 12,000, and I think this is a good topic for today of what projector makes the most sense in given situations. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into this. The biggest one for most people is budget, right? Budget plays a dominant part in what piece of equipment we can choose or we decide to choose. So some people will have you believe that budget doesn't really matter. We shouldn't discuss budget at the beginning. And I want to know, do you guys think budget should be one of the first things to be discussed? Because some people will say, I don't even ask the budget question. I just say, what do you want? And then pick a projector or a piece of equipment accordingly. The problem with that is if I ask you, what do you want? And what you want only something like, because maybe you don't have the knowledge base, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you don't have the knowledge base to know every projector and what that piece of equipment or projector can deliver. And what you want tells me you want a Christie M4K 25. It's like a $90,000 MSRP projector. If I then tell you, hey, you need a Christie M4K, and here's how much it costs, $90,000, you're going to think I'm crazy. And you're going to think probably that I'm just out to try and get as much money out of your wallet as possible. Yes? No? Maybe? What do you think? Would you agree with that? That's how I feel. So I think budget 100% matters because I need to know how much you want to spend. What is your target spend for this particular project? It's like you're going into a basement. You're doing a basement remodel for those of us that have basements or any part of a home or a condo or apartment, whatever. You're doing a remodel. One of the first things you're going to try and figure out is how much can I allocate to this project? Now, the unfortunate part of that when you're talking to a salesman, because I am a salesman, I try not to come across as a salesman, but I am a salesman because I do sell things for a living. One thing that unfortunately can manifest as an impression is, well, the salesman's just going to take my budget and they're going to find the piece that fits and maxes out that budget. And some people may do that, but the other important part to think about is how or what boxes does that piece of equipment tick? And is it that expensive because I'm trying to maximize the amount of performance that you're getting, right? So that's typically what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get you the best bang for your buck. And usually that's maximizing your budget, unfortunately. MW says budget goes with screen size. To an extent, there are times where I may recommend a projector that is cheaper for a bigger screen. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Uh, as an example, I may recommend something. Let's say you've got a 200-inch screen, big screen. I may recommend, depending on your sensitivity to RBE, a Christie 860, which I think has an MSRP of somewhere, I don't know off the top of my head, somewhere between 12 and 15,000. But it's 8,000 lumens, roughly. Instead of recommending something like where some other people may do it, an NZ500 or an NZ900. That won't work in that screen. So I can't say that it's necessarily tied to screen size because there are cheaper projectors that will work. Now, yes, for the same budget, roughly same budget, you could do a QL7000. But my point is that it's not always tied to screen size. It comes down to what they're trying to get out of it. If I ask them and say, what do you value more? Do you want brightness? Do you value blacks? Do you need both? Both is where it gets more expensive because you can't make a compromise. It's like, I can't trade one for the other. I need both. Well, then we're moving into more expensive territory because in order to get one of those really, really good at a cheaper price, you got to give up something else. You're always giving up something. If you want both, you're giving up money. If you want one or the other, you can drop the price. If you want none of them, you can drop the price further. You can just get a poo-poo projector. You get my analogy. But if you did like an NZ900 as an example for 30 grand, we're talking about the QL7000 and the NZ900. Your compromise there is native contrast versus brightness, right? I've got 3,000 lumens roughly against 10,000 lumens. Now, the QL7000 does not have the native contrast that the NZ has. The NZ does not have the brightness that the QL has. So if you're on a big screen, which one do you value? Do you want the brightness? Do you want the native contrast? Because you're not going to get both unless you spend exorbitantly more money. There's always a trade-off. There's always a triangle going on, right? There's always money, one piece of performance, another piece of performance. Which two do you want? You're never going to get all three. So that's my thought process on that. So budget king, and I will get to your question, Logan. Let me get through the projector stuff, and I will get to your question. Budget king, to me, at least for the enthusiast, when we're talking about enthusiast level projectors, there are cheaper projectors than this. I just think they're not bright enough. They have other trade-offs, right? I won't talk about them because it'll get me in trouble. I'm not saying they're bad projectors. I think for the money, they're good projectors. To me, budget in the enthusiast circles where we exist starts at between $4,000 and $5,000 for a good projector, right? And that's going to be the LS12000. That's where I think we start. Now, you could do like a 50-40, a 50-50, a 60-40, or a 60-50, depending. 60-50 and 50-50 would be my, I think, recommendations over the 40 series because of their processing. If Jonathan's watching, correct me. I think those have the processing, or chat, correct me. Pretty sure those have the processing. 40 series is just going to be, I wouldn't do those because of HDR processing. So LS12000, I think, is where it starts. You spend a little bit more than that. And when I say a little bit, you're talking in chunks of like $1,000. You spend a little bit more than that, NZ500. You're trading there more contrast, significantly so, a bit better image processing, but you're sacrificing some brightness. The LS12000 will be brighter. Now, will you necessarily notice and like, aha, look at that, it's way brighter? That's subjective, and it depends on the screen, and it depends on the environment. It depends on the screen size. Those are your real entry-level projectors. Gotten a lot of questions about the LS12000 because I do have some in stock. So if you have interest in the LS12000, I'm happy to help you out. But that's where everything starts to me. And that's the best bang for performance projector that you're going to get is one of those two. New out of the box. You can always do used. No question. And there's cheaper offerings. I'm not here to say that there's not projectors that will not do well, depending on your environment, your sensitivity, RBE. There are projectors that are cheaper that can deliver and that people are very happy with. I'm not here to say that. The Valorian is one of them. If you're not sensitive to RBE, it can be a good projector for the money. Is it everything that they make it out to be in marketing? Absolutely not. But it is something that is very good for the money. For a couple $1,000s, the Valerian is very good. You just can't be sensitive to RBE because you will see it, especially on some screens. So all good stuff. MW says, Vidia C5 projector, 6500 lumen Valerian Max killer, apparently. Vida C5. What is this? Vida C5. Let's see. Oh, it's Hisense. It looks very similar to the Valerian. $28,000 USD. That's not right. That can't be right. $200,000 yen. There's no way it's $28,000. Anybody know how much this is? $2,500 on Amazon. That's better. Okay. So model supports 4K 60, 1080, 240, 110% coverage of BT 2020, 8,001 native. Okay. So that is a spec that I can understand. That could be okay. We're getting into the realm of acceptability there. And by acceptability, I mean good. Like I would be happy with it. Not acceptable was the wrong word. I mean good. When you start getting around 10,001 in a lot of situations with projection, to me, depending on what you're after and the price and stuff, that is good enough to me in a lot of situations. My Griffin gets 5,700 to 1 at 300 nits. So it's lower than this. Now you do VDR, it'll go up exponentially with dynamic contrast, but 8,001, it's not bad. Not bad. I don't buy the dynamic. I think that's you're never going to get that. But that everybody does that. Everybody plays that game. That's all I know about this projector. So, cool. I like the option. I like having more options, regardless if I would ever use them or recommend them. The point is that people are empowered to make their own choices. Whatever they think fits and ticks all the boxes for them. I am here simply as a steward to help you on your journey. I'm not here to make decisions for you. If this ticks the boxes for you, regardless of how I feel about projectors like this, because a lot of times they don't have motorized lenses. This one might. They have too many compromises for me, but for a lot of people, this would do great. And I don't have a problem with that. Looks cool. Looks fancy. I kind of like the gold. I don't know that I like the gold in a room. That's interesting. But hopefully it's a good contender. Hopefully it does well. Hisense makes good stuff. So that's cool. Thanks for bringing that up, MW. I like that. That's awesome. Derek says, such a tricky part of the process. You at least need a rough area of price. Is the client price sensitive? Is the budget fixed? But the scope of the project affects component prices. It does. They all go together. And I think it's just important that people understand what they're trying to get out of it. What do you want out of anything that you're getting? And make sure that if you're building a new theater, that you allocate enough budget to each component. I don't know what you allocate enough. There's a lot of situations. I just spoke to one of my friends who's a custom integrator, and he said, we built this huge room, or they built this huge room, and then they don't want to spend any money on equipment. And that's a problem, because if you have a huge room, that makes things even more important to get what's needed, because you're going to run into even more so distortion. You're going to run into brightness issues because the screen's probably enormous. You're going to run into all kinds of different problems because you made the room big. And you made the room big probably because you just wanted a big room and you want to entertain a bunch of people. And whoever was helping you build that room didn't tell you that as you make the room bigger, your price of equipment probably goes up depending on what you're after, right? You can get PA equipment, but the problem with PA equipment is it's really difficult to hide and it's ugly if you can't hide it. So there's one of your compromises on PA equipment is, yeah, it can be very SPL capable and have really good response, not get into distortion or breakup, but the trade-off there is heinous, horrifically ugly. Big plastic boxes. Not great aesthetically. And aesthetics plays a big part, especially if you want your significant other in a lot of cases to use the room with you or even allow it to happen if it's not aesthetically pleasing in their house. It's just how it's going to be. The worst, Thibault says, the worst thing sometimes having to settle for certain level of because you don't know and having to resell that 3 years after buying. That is called the journey, Thibault. That is the journey of pain. We have all been on it. I have been on that journey many, 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 many times in multiple hobbies. I go into Micro Center. I still do sometimes. I've learned a decent amount after doing this many times where I'll go into Micro Center and I'm trying to do something that very few, if any, people do. And I'm asking for something very specific. Like I need some off the wall capability and I need to be able to do whatever. And I'll ask a salesman, like, oh, yeah, you can do this and blah. And I'll do it and then it won't work. And I knew when I was buying it in the back of my head, there was a voice going, don't do it. It's not going to work. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then you do it. And that voice, it's like a lemming just jumps off a cliff because it's had enough of you not listening. Voice in the back of my head just gave up. It's like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Peace. I've done that so many times. I've done it in the home theater journey. I've done it in my PC overclocking stuff. I've done it in my combat flight sim Twitch stuff. I've done it in cars. I'll buy something because I'm like, I don't want to spend that much money and I think this will do it. And I'm compromising sometimes way more than I should. Sometimes I'm not even compromising. That product just won't even do what I want it to do. And then I end up, as Thibault said, having to sell it at a loss if I can't return it and go do it again. So now, not only am I wasting money, I'm wasting my time, which in a roundabout way is also wasting more money. So I learned, get what my gut tells me to get. I may have to spend a bit more. I may have to wait a little bit longer before I buy that thing, but I'm going to be happier in the long run. So Thibault, that is the pathway of pain. And I think we are all familiar with it. Ryan, I will come back to your question. I'm trying to stay on the projector and budget stuff. I am starring them. Get that one. I'll take Majek. So Majek is talking about the AVS forum podcast, The Front Row, that I do with Eric Wesley, who's the editor-in-chief of AVS Forum. And we did one with Rob. Why does his last... I'm terrible with names. Terrible with names. A lot of you guys know, if you watch me with Jonathan, that sometimes I'm like looking at Jonathan and my brain's going, I don't even know his last name. What is going on? I can't spell his last name. Now I don't even know it. It's fun England, by the way. I can't think of Rob's last name. What is Brennan? Is it Brennan? I can't. What is wrong with me? I think it's Brennan. Rob Brennan Epson. Brennan. I think it is. Chat will correct me. Chat, please correct me if that's wrong. Rob, I apologize profusely if that's not it, but I swear that is. I'm just bad with names. I'll remember your first name in most cases. Maybe getting hit by a truck on a motorcycle had something to do with it that I can't remember. No, it was bad before that. I can't use that as an excuse. It was always bad. But that podcast, we talked about HDR and we talked about SDR and we talked about why and the history and why it's a thing and what's important and, you know, all that stuff. So if you haven't watched it, it's on the ABS Forum YouTube channel. You can get to it directly from the ABS Forum website. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. So if that interests you, it's fun. I enjoy talking about that stuff. But now let's go back and talk about some questions. So if you guys have any questions, related to the topic of budget and how important it is to building out a system, building out a new room, and like, feel free to drop that in. I will get to it, but we're going to go to some questions. So Logan asks, do you recommend Storm as only a media room pre-pro or whole home audio processor? If there is also a great room system and bedroom, etc., would these have separate processors for the sake of flexibility? It depends, Logan, on how you can control them. So the Storm can run multiple rooms. So if you wanted to have the Storm run a media room and a bedroom, you could absolutely do that. You just need to figure out a way to control it, right? A lot of times that's IP control. There are free ways to do that. You're going to have to be your own tech support if that's what you want to do, but there are ways that you can save money, and that's what I use, actually. I use HT Web Remote, done by one of my friends, Nick Holroyd, who lives up in the North Midwest states outside Chicago, and it's fantastic. So easy, my family can use it without me instructing them how to use it. So if you're trying to do a multi-room solution, you've got to think about how to control it. There is a Storm app that you can utilize to control it. It requires more button pushes, which I'm not a fan of because it lessens the usability. So to me, you're going to want some type of IP control, but it can absolutely do it. Storm to me is one of those in-game products, right? It's one of those, regardless if it's one room or multi-room, it is a system that takes you along with Trinov. Trinov's right up there. If in some, they trade blows, they're better at different things. It represents the end. So if you're interested in Storm, Logan, I wouldn't hesitate. I bought one as a dealer. I talked about this last stream on Monday, I think. I bought one as a dealer, or not as a dealer, before I was a dealer, and paid MSRP, and I would do it again. I would, no question, do it again because of my experience with that. How it furthered my knowledge because of the things it could do, because I'm an enthusiast and I want to get in and play with things. The support that is offered for that product, which is part of what you're paying for is in a boutique product, is you're paying for better support. The build quality, it's just an amazing piece of equipment. So if you're thinking about it, I would do it if I were you. And if you have any more questions about it, do not hesitate to reach out. I did work on the bot, guys. For some reason, it's not working. So it's there and it's a moderator to the channel. It just doesn't work. And it's probably because I put it on the wrong channel or something. So I got to go back and look at it. It should be working, but it's not. So you would be able to just type like !sales and it would bring up my contact info and the spreadsheet, but it's not working right now. So my fail. But Logan, if you have any other questions, shoot me a message. Because to me, if you're thinking about Storm, it's the way to go. And I would not question making that happen. Ryan asks, Ryan, best tower for 2-channel music listing, budget 10K. Is this with subs? Do you have subs, or is this subless? Are these towers living lonely lives without dedicated subs? Best towers for 10K. A big part of that is going to be how far away are you listening? How big's the room? What is the room like? The room plays a bigger part in this than most people think. Living room? Let's say living room. Living room. What did I do? What have I had in my living room? I really, in an untreated living room, you have 4 subs. I would do, well, before I say I'm going to tell you what I would do. Ryan, just tell me what kind of room this is in. Is it treated? Is it untreated? In my living room, totally untreated. Big, really tall ceilings. I really liked the Kef. I had Kef Blade 1s, and I really liked how they sounded. And what do I mean by that? That room feels big. It's got really tall ceilings. I already said that. It's very bright. There's a lot of light. So your brain says, okay, I'm in this room. I know how this room should sound. We don't think about that, but subconsciously, your brain's going, things should sound this way because we are always dealing with reflections. We're always dealing with distortion. Our brains just tune it out. So we're getting stuff bouncing off the walls, a big room. We're going to have more of that. It's going to sound more spacious, right? It's like an echo. You're going to have how the sound propagates through that room is going to tell you subconsciously a lot about that room. Mine a big room? Mine a small room? Does this room have tall ceilings? Are there windows in here? There's a lot of things that go along with that. And to me, subjective opinion, ladies and gentlemen, this is my opinion. This is not rooted in anything objective. This is what I found that I like. I like a speaker that makes sense for that room. So if the room is really big and it's kind of echoey, there's not a lot of treatments or anything in that room. And if I talk, right, blah, there's sound spewing out of my mouth in a cone, it's going to echo. That's how it's going to sound. I want a speaker that does kind of the same thing because I want it to sound natural. So when I put the Kefs in there, they have a really broad dispersion, very wide. They sounded very natural in that room. It sounded more appropriate to that room. I have had very narrow dispersion speakers in that room, and while they measured better than the Kef, because they were sending sound right there, I don't think I liked the sound more. Subjectively. I want a speaker that makes sense for the space. That is how I feel. And the Kef are my favorite that have been through that living room. And there's been a bunch of stuff that's gone through that, including Black Swans, Perlisson S7Ts, Martin Logan F200s, Martin Logan Masterpiece 15As. What else has been in there? There's been some others that I can't think of their names right now. And the Kef Blade 1s. And the Kef Blade 1s were my favorite. No question. So for $10,000, probably a pair of Kef. If you're not trying to go ridiculous SPL, because they're not going to do it. They are not reference monsters. That's what I would do. And if you want to talk about that more, shoot me a message. If you rewind, I put up my email, and I won't do it again to annoy people, but shoot me a message. We can get you taken care of. And we can talk about more of what you're trying to get out of those speakers. Let me make sure you're not saying anything else. You have 4 subs. Yeah, you haven't said anything else. So I would do Kef. It's the direction I would go for. Tiki time. What size screen should I get? Whole room like you? Room specs, floor to ceiling, 7.5 feet, 15 feet wide. First listening, 11.5 feet. Second listening, 17. Screen to projectors, 19 feet. Dude, that is an enormous screen. I don't think I would do whole wall like I did because it's 15 feet wide. I really like floor to ceiling. What I would do, and this goes for anybody, anyone that's in chat. If you don't know what you want to do, I highly encourage people to go experience it. And you need to do that because if you don't know what you don't know what you should do. You're kind of guessing and you're basing your decision on somebody else's opinion. While I can tell you, yes, I personally like this, that doesn't mean that you're going to like it. We are all the culminations of our life experiences. And what I like is probably going to vary significantly so to what you like. So my recommendation is if you're in the US, take a trip to Kansas City and let's find out. I'll pick you up at the airport. You can stay with me. The only thing you're on the hook for at that point is the flight. And flights to Kansas City can be had for pretty cheap. You could fly in. I have plenty of clients. I do this probably once every couple weeks. I'll have a client that I'll go pick up from the airport. Even if you don't buy from me, I don't care. Again, I just want to be a steward of your journey. I want to help you make a decision so that that decision is representative of you and what you're trying to get out of the system, not what, oh, here's what the spec says, and you need to be this many degrees and all that. Just get rid of that. It's important to do what you want. That is the important thing. And to get equipment that allows you to do that to the level that you want to get to. So, Tiki Time, if you're in the US, come to Kansas City and you can see, because my screen is floor to ceiling, wall to wall. And you can decide, do I want this? Or is this too big? For you, if it's second row, one thing to consider is, do I care about the people sitting in the second row? To me, no. I didn't even put a second row in. That's how little I care about people in the second row. But for you, you do a floor to ceiling screen, second row is probably not going to be able to see the bottom if they don't have a really tall riser. But a lot of people that sit in the second row really don't care. And that's what people seem to forget. The only real person that cares in a lot of these situations is you. Your spouse probably doesn't care. Your kids think it's cool, but they probably don't care. The only real person that is obsessing over this and that's going to be upset about not seeing the bottom of the screen in the majority of this time is you. Don't design a space for the 1%. Design for the 99% use case. If the people that sit in the back row, maybe they're your kids and you want them to have a good experience. In that case, I get it. But if you're just putting a back row in case you're entertaining, don't make compromises for that row. It is not worth it. You're giving up too much for something that is hardly ever going to be used. And if it is used, in the majority of cases, it's not going to be used by people that really care. I have people come through the space all the time that are not enthusiasts, and all they think is this is super cool. They do not care at all about anything else because it's not what they're into, and that's okay. They just want to see something cool. That is perfectly fine. We're all different. So everyone that's doing multiple row, just ask yourself that question. I am not saying don't do multiple rows. I am simply saying do it correctly and do not compromise on the space's capability for that second row. This gets easier to get by and work around if the room is really big. Because if the room is really big, you don't have to compromise hardly at all for the speakers, as long as the speakers can performance-wise do it. Because sound will use 6 dB for every doubling of distance. And as the room gets bigger, that doubling of distance increases in size. So your fall off lessens and you actually get more consistency over a longer distance. So dealing with second rows becomes less of a problem. Unless you're dealing with screen size, then it becomes riser and so on. But bigger rooms, less of a problem. Smaller rooms, like the majority of us in near field listening, more of a problem. So just remember that. And if anybody thinks they want to come listen to the space, I am always open. My wife has accepted that I'm a weirdo. Shoot me a message. I will pick you up from the airport. If you need me to host you, I will. We can potentially go see other theaters in the Kansas City area, though I can't promise that. But it is worth seeing because it defines what you want. Regardless if this room, if the Mad VR Experience Center, which to me and a lot of other people represents the end in what is possible in home theater. Like it is the end. It's a small room. I am compromising on some things, but for the center, like 3 seats, if you're sitting next to each other, there's nothing better in the industry. It is the end. It redefines for dealers, vendors, reps in the industry, what is possible in the space. And the reason I think you should see it is because it allows you to decide what you want out of a space. What do you value? You don't come there thinking, I'm going to make a copy of this theater. That's not what the Mad VR Experience Center is for. It is there to show what is possible in every capacity. Because if it doesn't do that, how do you know what you want? How do you know what you value? How do you know what, oh, I can compromise on this because I want this because of my budget? And that's perfectly fine. But you don't know that until you experience it. Otherwise, you're just guessing. Or we go back to MW's or Thibault's discussion. I think it was Thibault, where you're buying stuff and then selling and then rebuying and then selling and rebuying because you're trying to experience all of these things. When I would just encourage you, go experience them at a theater that's already doing it. I'll get off that soapbox, but that's what I would do. That's a great question, Tiki. I kind of went down a rabbit hole on it, but yeah. Anyway, I think it's important for people to experience things. MW says LG just released the first active matrix micro LED. Should be noticeably better than previous generations. Active matrix. Can you define what that means, MW? What does that give us? What does that deliver? All right, now I got to ask you. So MW, while he's answering my question of what an active matrix is, he says, I've been a JVC fan for ages, but now I'd take a Sony Bravia 8 or 9 or the JVC. Why? Why did that change? Context. I need context. And you're not delivering. Jeff, is direct art worth it if your main bed layer speakers don't play down past 80 hertz with an out substantial? Yeah. Yeah. Art doesn't necessarily care. I mean, it does, but it's going to use, even when you're rolling off, it'll still use that stuff in support. So that's okay. Because take the Experience Center again for an example. The 12s roll off very rapidly after about where you're at. I think my crossover for them is like at 110 or something. They roll over rapidly after that point, but they're still in the support matrix. They're still able to support other speakers. So I would still allow them to support for sure. And don't take that as gospel. Go try it. Go build, save a template with them supporting and save one without and try one and then try the other. And to do it properly, convince your spouse, if you have one, convince your kids, convince a friend to teach them how to change it. You're going to have to reprogram it if your processor can't do multiple art. Storm can, but I don't know if some of the other ones can. Where you can change it, they'll change it while you're out of the room. Come back in and see if you can tell which one it is. Do it blind. The best way to do these things is do them blind. Because if you have a sight where you can see, you're going to have a sighted bias. And that's going to introduce a subjective bias because you know what you're listening to. If you don't, and you're asked, hey, which one is better? Listen to this one, and then go back and forth several times. You may surprise yourself on what you like. Or you may say, I can't tell the difference. And then you have that answer. And that's just as important. So test it, try it, figure it out. Got to try it. Any inside news about the audio control DPR 16? I have no idea. Big Street Cinema. Cinema. Jeez, can't talk. I have no idea. Are those like whole home? What is this? Audio control DPR 16. Audio control DPR 16. So is the DPR analog and the APR is active using AES? Is that what that is? How much are they? Hyperion series. Do we know how much these are yet? $8,000. I know nothing about them. What auto EQ do they use? DPR. Huh. I think it's good for the industry to have more choices, especially in that price range. That price range is really limited as far as options. Your 8,000, 9,000, you're really looking at the AVM 90. You're looking at the AV10. Potentially, you could say you're looking at the Denon A1H. It's 7 something. What else? Not many options there in that price point. So I'm happy that there's more options. That's great. I have no experience with audio control and zero, even less experience, negative experience with audio control now that AV Pro has them. I hope it's good because I want it to be an option. That's great. MW, no, I did not mean he should get the Kef blades for 10K. That is not what I meant. I meant that's what I use. And Kef does a very good job of having that same signature. The blades are an extreme, but that same style, signature sound through their product line, especially the reference. You could do reference bookshelves, and I think that would perform phenomenally in that space for 2-channel listening. He's got 4 subs. You don't need towers for that. Anthony says, I haven't tried direct art upgrade on my Denon yet. What are the rooms where you wouldn't use it? I don't think there are rooms where I wouldn't use it. Unless the room is really bad. But no, I mean, art's going to be hugely helpful for bad rooms with active room treatment. So I wouldn't look at it that way. I think that's good. I think it'll help. About a toss. Waveforming, planar wave versus conventional subwoofer options. I've noticed that kick bass was more immediate and impactful outside, even with the same speakers. Does planar wave have the same impact? Outside. I don't know what you mean. I mean, you're going to have doubling aspects with planar. You're going to have benefits from doing some type of wave setup. Waveforming isn't, it uses that idea, but it's using a canceling wave coming from the back. And it's more, waveforming is the idea of using treatments and cancelizations. If you're talking like a planar wave from the front, it's not synonymous with waveforming. But if you can put subs in a planar wave setup, you'll have a good time. It'll be good. Because you're getting summing from having all of these drivers next to each other. The surface area of the power, you're getting benefits, not only in the response, but in the capability of the system. So there's one in Kansas City that has 80 12-inch drivers on the front wall. It's going to be awesome. I already know it's going to be awesome. I've never heard it. Giordano, do you want to see your feet in the view with floor to ceiling screen? You don't have to. I do because I have chases. You can do it different ways. You don't have to see your feet. You just like seeing feet, Drew. I'm calling you out. Taking notes, Ryan says, don't do I did not say that. I said, do a second row based on what you think your use case is for the space. That's what I mean. If your use case determines that you should have a second row, do a second row. If your room is conducive for a second row, do a second row. Would I like to have a second row? Sure. Am I willing to compromise? Absolutely not. STL Sports Audio Fam, when I put in my theater, I envision this family bonding place. Nada. 99% of the time watching just me. Yes, we have these ideas that this is going to happen. And because that's what we want to happen. And then it doesn't happen. And that's okay. But don't build something for this idea that may not come to fruition. One row in a lot of cases is good enough for a family. You can throw in beanbags. You can do all this stuff for temporary seating. Don't do permanent seating because you think it might happen. Temporary seating, a lot of times good enough. Excellent point, sports fan. So this MW is answering my question of what is active matrix, because LG just came out with this. Active matrix is control of each pixel before they used to scan rows and columns, pulse widths, modulations, a bit like, oh, so it's more control. That's great. That is awesome. Good job, LG. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, I'm still going. Best demo scene in Pacific Rim. I like the first fight where Gypsy Danger gets taken out. His brother dies. Spoiler alert. That is my favorite one because I think it's darker. It's got the brights. It's got the light. It's got a lot of bass. It doesn't have much music. I think that's my favorite. A lot of people like the fight in Tokyo where he's using the ship as a sword. Okay. Problem with that movie. I love the movie. It's a dumb movie. I love the movie. It's fun. He's got a freaking sword in his arm. He has two swords in his arms. Why is he using a boat? And why does he not use the sword earlier? I feel like that was missed opportunities, and you're fighting very poorly when you got a mother trucking sword in your arm and you're not using it. And she says, when they're in the air with the bird thing, we got a sword. He's like, oh yeah, we got a sword. And I'm supposed to have to know how to use this thing. And you didn't know you had a sword. I mean, maybe plot points. They added the sword since he'd been in Gypsy Danger. Maybe give him the credit of the doubt. But why does he not know he has a sword? Why is that not a thing? I read the following on the CEDIA white paper, room volume, square foot. Are you asking like how much, what reference would be, what capability you need for speakers? Is that what this is getting at? I don't know what this is getting at, Stephen. Enlighten me. Would you do 2 large surrounds, ham rammer 12, or 4 smaller ham rammer 8s? I can fit 4 ham rammer 12 due to room restrictions. Don't need the added headroom, but improved frequency response for art. How close are these speakers to you, Torsten? If they're really close to you, I mean, an 8 is a good driver. I need to, Torsten, send me a message so we can talk about this off stream. I'd like to help you. So send me a message, and I don't think you're in the US. I just want to help you. And this goes for anybody. Send me a message, info@ascendav.net or ryan@ascendav.net. And we can see about what I would do here. I can't answer it and say, yeah, go 12. I mean, yes, the 12 is probably better, but does it make sense to spend the extra money all on speakers, especially if it's going to be an aesthetic problem, if it's going to create other problems because they're bigger? There's issues. So they're 1.2 meters away, so 4 feet. I don't know. Send me a message. There's unknowns there. I don't know that you need something that big, but we've come to the end. That was a fun stream. I enjoyed that. These little 45-minute get-togethers. So the next one, let me check my calendar here. When can we do the next one? Next one is going to be, let's do Tuesday. We'll do Tuesday. Bam. Tuesday at 8 a.m. So I will book that. Next stream will be on Tuesday. And then we can keep this going consistently. Somebody said, don't burn yourself out. I don't feel like I'm burning I enjoy this. I enjoy these really short streams. I enjoy burning out is doing this for 8 hours. That is me burning out. I'm not going to burn out on this. 45 minutes is great. Get it in. Feel like I've done something with my day, interact with all of you. I think it's fantastic. So I think it's great. We'll do another stream on Tuesday, the 28th, before Halloween. And then we'll probably do another one on Thursday, would be my guess. But if you guys have any questions, if you want to come out to Kansas City, if you have any questions about product, if you want to buy something, whatever, do not hesitate to shoot me a message at info@ascendav.net or ryan@ascendav.net, and I will do my best to get you taken care of. Even if you're not buying from me, I just want you to have a good journey. We do have LS 12,000s in stock. I've got some Storm audio processors in stock. So if those are things that you guys want, they can go immediately, and we can orchestrate time where I can hand deliver the Storm stuff to you. So that's it. We're at the end. I will see you guys all probably tomorrow or this weekend with Jonathan for another official stream of the AV experience with Jonathan Von England. I do sometimes remember his name. I'm never going to let that die. But stay safe out there. Enjoy your AV home theater journeys. Enjoy the upcoming holiday. Watch some good movies, some horror movies especially, and let me know if there's anything good out there because I do enjoy those movies. I need to watch Weapons. That's one that I need to watch. But if you got any good suggestions, drop them into the comments on the video, and I will try and watch them and convince Jonathan to watch them like this with his phone because that's how he does the horror stuff. But anyway, enjoy the stream. See you guys next time, probably tomorrow. Have a good one.